Hey everyone, Bill Nikolai here. I want to tell you a little bit about one of my favorite flying sites, Grouse Mountain. It's an urban site in North Vancouver, and just off my boot in the photo you can see our LZ, nestled in amongst multi-million-dollar homes. Grouse has been famous for foot-launched flights since the mid-1970s. It was a kind of mecca for hang gliders from around the globe, with several international meets held there throughout the 70s and 80s. Lots was written about Grouse in publications such as Hang Gliding magazine. Words and photos focused on the gnarly takeoff, but also on the LZ, smaller at the time, and described in one account by Mark Schwinge as about the size of a postage stamp or a bread box. The Grouse Championships would attract lots of media attention and thousands of spectators. One description talks about 5,500 people in one day riding the tram to view takeoffs. National newspapers and TV did stories on the comps. Prize money for the championships grew to over $10,000 in the second year. That would be $1978. Some top-notch photographers such as Leroy Granitz from California, who would become famous for his surfing images, covered the event. Grouse made the cover of Hang Gliding magazine 5 times in the 80s, with 3 appearances in 1987 alone. Centerfolds in the magazine weren't uncommon either, with competitors mounting granny's cameras on their gliders or using SLRs of their own. One reporter in 1986 notes that 3 pilots lost cameras while airborne, which I'm sure came as a surprise to people on their patios and in the neighborhood down below. This selfie, taken that year by Mitch McAleer, I love because it gives us a sense of the spectacle and also how the LZ's neighborhood has changed over time. There were over 500 spectators estimated at that LZ. Trees around the perimeter were just saplings. There are no hang glider flights today at Grouse because those trees are now very tall. There was always the potential for mayhem, and you get a sense of that from some of these great shots by Leroy Granitz. With as many as 28 gliders launching in 22 minutes, a lot could happen. 1984 saw a mid-air between John Duffy and Ian Huss, who both went down under reserve and ended up unscathed 100 feet up a tree. Another pilot tangled with a fence, and others just put on great shows. That's Stuart Midwinter swooping low in 1981, mid-right of this slide. In 1989, the Grouse Mountain flying team had only 2 paraglider members, Jan and Joris Moschaud, who I just had the great pleasure of meeting at the Pemby lower launch a couple of weeks ago. Cameron McKenzie, who was an Air Canada pilot at the time, learned to paraglide with Jan and Joris and joined the GMFT. In a kitchen interview I did with Cam in 2015, he told me that in those days, new recruits would just do a flight or 2 and then become GMFT members. Cam's paraglider had a 4-to-1 glide ratio, and in his first 2 Grouse flights, he didn't make the Cleveland Park LZ. In those days, there were 50 GMFT members, and the basic instructions were, don't hit the tram, don't land in the watershed. Cam was stoked about flying Grouse, and he, with 2 partners, started the first tandem operation, First Flight. He and his partners pumped $20,000 into site improvements with the blessing of the McLaughlin family, which then owned Grouse Resort. Much like Al Thielman today at Benny in the Miracle Valley, thank you Al, they also put a bunch of sweat equity into the improvements. And over 3 months, with dump truck loads of dirt and gravel and lots of new turf, they turned a sketchy takeoff into a manicured launch suitable for tourist tandems and club flights alike. So here we are in the now not-so-new millennium. The GMFT is still around. Grouse has gone from ownership by a Chinese hedge fund after the McLaughlins to new ownership by the Ghilardi family. The launch and the LZ are still challenging, and there are a lot of rules that have arisen for a variety of reasons. So what's it like to take off from the peak of Vancouver? Here's a short sample. the landing on an easy, mellow afternoon when the dragon isn't breathing and the notorious spiciness of Cleveland Field isn't inducing the pucker factor. Some people think the GMFT members are a party of cliquey prima donnas who want to keep this site for themselves. Not true. Yes, there are restrictions, mainly born out of incidents over the years. For example, in 1993, a visiting pilot from down south, who will go unnamed, who happened to be a senior instructor and a rep for a paragliding manufacturer, did a flight from Grouse to Vanier Park after having been advised of airspace restrictions. He claimed he had a jet fly under him at one point. Other people have done other things, and so yes, we have membership criteria. Lots of things to be aware of. Having said that, I never fail to love my Grouse flights, even if they sometimes are just sledders. Launch is at 4,100 feet ASL, and a typical route on a stable day takes me over the Grizzlies, around the lodge where I can wave to the burger and beer crowd, over the tram and on to Cleveland Park. The yellow circles are lift generators, which can often offer the possibility of extended flights. While cross-country flights are somewhat limited, partly owing to airspace restrictions, people have been known to tag Crown Mountain behind Grouse and even the Lions and Cypress Bowl to the west. At last summer's Grouse Fly-In, we had some exceptionally lifty conditions. Here's a taste of a flight that James Elliott did that day that took him all the way to Cypress. So, if you're interested in joining our guest list, here are the basic requirements. You need 2 GMFT members to vouch for your flying ability, a P3 rating with HPAC insurance, and the willingness to fly with full members on each flight until you yourself become a full team member. You can find more information and a link to application at gmft.westcoastsoaringclub.com. I'm looking forward to seeing you over North Vancouver.